Haha. All right, everyone. Well, welcome back. This is part 2 of Ask the King for January 2016. If you have not seen part 1 yet, definitely head over and watch it right here on the King of Hate vlogs. It should already be live, okay? So let's jump right into it. We got many more questions to answer. Our first question of part 2 comes from the Chief 052. I don't know why I said it like that. Anyway, the Chief 052 asks the following. Phil, you've obviously been getting a lot of review copies in late 2015, at least more than you have been getting them in the past. And before you did, you were buying most multi-console games for the PlayStation 4 because you prefer that console this generation. I, for one, was very happy that you were doing this because that meant I could play the multiplayer games that you got. But now, it seems like you've been getting review copies that have been mostly been on the Xbox One console. So has that been your personal preference choice? Has been that been the developer's choice? What's the deal behind that? Is it your choice to switch from PS4 to Xbox One? If not, what should happen to people like me who want to play the newest multiplayer games with you, but you're owning them all now on the Xbox One instead of the PlayStation 4? So it's basically two questions in one. The first question is, I've been getting review copies. At least in late 2015, I was getting review copies of games. But most of them seem to be on Xbox One. What's up with that? Was that an active choice of mine or not? And number two, what's going to happen with people who want to play games multiplayer with me? What should be the console of choice? All right. So, first half of the question. Let me explain to you the process by which I get review copies of games. It's all because I am a managed partnership with Machinima. And what happens is from time to time, I'll get an email from Machinima that will say, what games are you interested in playing in the next several months? All right. So last year, 2015, I believe I got 3 of these emails. I got one, I believe it was in like early February of 2015, excuse me. And then I believe that I got one around mid 2015 and then one around September, October of 2015. And what I would do is I would fill out, it would actually have a list. It wouldn't be like, tell us the games. It would be like, out of these releases, which are you planning on playing? And so I would check off this one, whatever ones I was planning on playing. And then it would say, what is your console of choice for each game? So I would say, do I want it on PS4 or Xbox One? Quite honestly, I remember for a lot of them, I did check off PS4. For some, I checked off both if I had no major preference, okay? And what I would do that 3 times in the year. And you might think, oh, gee, well, that's great. And then you would get a list of the review copies you're going to get so you could plan ahead and everything. No, that never happened. Here's literally what would happen. The morning of the game, sometimes a little earlier than that, but usually it was the morning of the release of the game, I'd get an email. Sometimes it would be from Machinima. Sometimes it would actually be from a PR company that was hired on behalf of the game developer. And they would say, Phil, congratulations, we're sending you a review code for this game or an advanced copy of this game or a promotional copy of this game. They would all be worded differently. Here's your code. By the way, the code is for this console. Enjoy. Now, sometimes there'd be criteria like if you are using this code, you have to put in the description of your video that you received this copy of the game for free. Other times, there'd be no restraints whatsoever. Sometimes they'd even be like, we don't even know if you're going to play the game or not, but here's just a free code. Okay? And that happens. Sometimes I just get codes out of the blue. Games I never even planned on playing, never even heard of. Here's a code. So, in that regard, I get no advanced warning, and I don't even know what console I'm going to get a game on. Now, late last year, if you remember, the last quarter of 2015, I got games such as Rainbow Six Siege, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Fallout 4, Star Wars Battlefront, and a few others. I got them all for Xbox One. Now, I didn't ask for Xbox One. That's just what I got. I was just told, here, we're going to give you a copy on this console. Enjoy. When I got my review copy of Fallout 4, it actually said in the envelope that I was supposed to get a copy on each console. They were like, we hope that you enjoy your copies for both PS4 and Xbox One, but all I got was Xbox One. So it's completely random. It's not planned. There's no warning. Sometimes, this has actually happened, I got a code of the game after the game released. I remember last year it was Dying Light, where I had bought the game already, and then I got the code of the game later in the day when I was already playing the game. I got a code for it, and I said, well, can I give this away? And I was told, no, you can't give it away because this was a copy only for, promotional purposes. It's not like any general person is supposed to get this code. It's supposed to be like you're playing the game, you're doing a playthrough, and you're promoting the game. So It sucks a lot of the times. I don't, right now, out of the blue, I could get a code for a game, and I have no responsibility to play the game, especially if it's not a game that I asked for a code for, but it just happens sometimes. So I had no active plans to play many of the games that I played in late 2015 on the console that I played them on. But the bottom line is this: I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. If I'm getting a free copy of a game, I'm going to play that free copy of the game on the console that I got it for. I'm not going to say, well, now I'm going to go spend another $60, especially in the case of some of the games like Star Wars Battlefront. Like, I remember, I was originally going to buy that on PS4. I got it on Xbox One. Thank God I didn't buy it on PS4 to have 2 copies, because the game sucks. Quite honestly, the game is, after playing it 2 or 3 sessions, it's not worth ever playing again. It's nowhere near as good as the other Battlefronts, and it's kind of a joke, in my opinion. So I'm glad that I didn't spend double money, you know what I mean, or bought the game and then got another code, because it wasn't worth it. All right. So I apologize to those who maybe, wow, I really wanted to play multiplayer with Phil, but he ended up not getting the game on the console that I'm playing it on. Sometimes this is going to happen. All right. When you got direct console competition, I might just get a code out of nowhere, and it may be for the console you don't have it on, and that's the version I'm going to play. Now, is it a coincidence that I ended up getting a bunch of these codes for Xbox One, or is it that Microsoft is kind of secretly behind the scenes trying to promote the Xbox One, and so that's why they're sending these codes out to YouTubers? I have no clue. I have no direct contact with whatever's going on behind the scenes with Microsoft. I don't know. All right? So I have no knowledge of that. It very well could be. I could certainly see some Microsoft execs saying, man, we're number 2 right now in the console war, and we got to sell more consoles, and we got to prove that our versions of the games are just as good as the other versions. So let's put out these codes so that YouTubers will play our version of the game, and people will be convinced to buy it on Xbox One. It could be, but I'm not involved with that. If I knew about that, I certainly would disclose it. But I'm not involved with that. I'm happy to be getting free copies of games when I do. I'll tell you this, I didn't get a questionnaire this year. It's early 2016 right now, I didn't get one. So in the next few months, we've got all these games coming out, and I didn't get any questionnaire whatsoever about what games are you playing from Machinima. So chances are I'm probably not getting any promotional copies in the near future. So certainly I apologize to those who may have been planning on playing multiplayer with me in certain games. It is what it is, especially now when things are financially very tight for me. I can't look the gift horse in the mouth. I have to go with whatever the copy of the game is. That is kind of the free copy of the game. All right. Next question. This one is from Gunnerman1400, and he says, Phil, in your Until Dawn gameplay, the story had a lot of horror movie-style cliches. Some I found tolerable, while some were annoying, like the jack-in-the-box scares that came up throughout the playthrough. I'm an aspiring filmmaker who wants to learn how to write good stories. Do you think that some cliches can work for or against a story? See, here's the thing. He's absolutely right. Until Dawn was a very suspenseful horror-style game. And a lot of it had traditional horror stuff, but there were jump scares in the game that literally had nothing to do with the game. They were just there for the sake of being there to try to give you a jump scare. Now, horror movies do this all the time. They use audio jumps. They use unrelated things that aren't even supposed to be scary. You'll have something, oh my God, I heard something in the kitchen. Someone's very slowly walking into the kitchen. The music's building, right? Walking into what they're going to find. Is it going to be a ghost? Is it going to be a monster? And they turn, and it's like your brother doing something stupid, and it's a cheap-ass jump scare just for the sake of having it in there, right? Horror movies do this all the time. And I'd say probably in Until Dawn, there were maybe 4 or 5 of them total. I didn't find it so incredibly excessive that it broke the immersion of the game, and I know why they were there. They were doing it on purpose, because without that, maybe it wouldn't feel as much of a B-movie kind of horror movie as the game was aiming to be. But the thing is, when that's your entirety of your movie, the only thing that you're scaring with is a jump scare, that's when the movie's a piece of shit. And I hate to say it, a lot of modern horror movies do this. There's an element of suspense, but the only thing that ever really scares you in the movie is a crazy ass jump scare. And that means it's devoid of psychological horror, it's devoid of any kind of an ongoing mystery, it's just jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. And that's lame. That's fucking lame, you know? Like, just because there's an audio spike or something on the screen appears out of nowhere cheaply, that shouldn't be the entirety of a horror movie. It should have some kind of a quality to it of a story or psychological terror that hooks you, that gets you going, you know? And I hate to say it, games sometimes adhere to this too, and sometimes they don't. It all depends, you know? Let's face it. The classic Resident Evils had jump scares, but also they had psychological horror. The Silent Hill games had some of the best psychological horror there ever was, but there was also jump scares. There's ways to do it so that it's well balanced. I don't think that just because a horror movie or a game has jump scares that it's bad, especially if it's done in good taste and not overdone. Everything in moderation, right? That's the thing. And if you go too much into it, then you overblow it, and then it kind of gets like, oh man, now this is lame because this is what they're going for rather than actually something original or different. Okay. Next question is from Jamar, and he says, Phil, I've been having troubles recently saving my money. Seems like every time that I get a paycheck and then I cash it, I always end up spending it, and it's really mostly on stuff I don't even need. I wanted to know if you've ever had gone through a habit of spending money like that. What did you do about it? And what tips would you give to someone who wants to do a better job of saving money? Well, that's from Jamar. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm a human, and I've had times in my life when I would save up money and I would blow it on stuff. Now, the thing is, when I was much younger, like when I was a teenager, I never had a lot of money. And what I would do is I would take my money and save it for 6 months at a pop in my bank account. And then I would go to like a tournament or go on a trip that would be for Street Fighter. And my parents hated that. My parents said, why don't you save your money for something worthwhile? Why don't you save it for something nice? Instead, you're just going to play Street Fighter all the time. And in a lot of ways, I can agree with what they were saying, but a lot of ways at the time I disagreed, because the thing is, yeah, here I am, it's 2016. Does it matter really that I blew my money when I was a teenager playing competitive Street Fighter? Did I get anywhere with it? Yes and no. I got notoriety from it, but did it make or break my life? No. And certainly in this modern era, I'm not a competitive Street Fighter player. So did it go anywhere? Ultimately, not really. But I got to travel. I got to see places all around the country that I wouldn't have seen if I hadn't been traveling like that. I got to meet people of all different cultures, races, ethnicities, different, levels of life that all were into Street Fighter. And really, it was a culturally diverse thing that I feel that if I hadn't done it, then maybe I would have been a less diverse person. I would have been a lot less open-minded. Really, like, I think that it actually did open my eyes to a lot of things those years when I was traveling and playing Street Fighter a lot. So, for me, that was my early days. Now, later on, after that, I started blowing money on stuff. And for me, though, here's the thing. It wasn't that it was cash I had. This was the era when these credit card companies would send credit cards to everyone. And as long as you had a fucking credit score, it didn't matter if you had no credit history or nothing, you would get credit cards out the ass. So as soon as I went to college, I started getting credit card applications in the mail, and I ended up getting credit cards and racking up these credit cards. I was buying stupid shit. Like, I had an Alienware fucking laptop that I never actively used for anything useful. It was a toy and a waste of time, and honestly, it was false advertising. It was did not live anywhere near up to what they had promised that the laptop was going to be, which very much pissed me the fuck off. And then later on, I ended up moving out of my parents' house and moving into an apartment, which I shared with 2 other roommates. And halfway through living there, I lost my job, and now I was fucked. And I had no way to pay all these credit card bills. I ended up selling all the shit that I had bought just to make ends meet and try to have money to buy food every day and to pay off my credit card bills. So life was not a very good thing because I was not financially responsible, okay? The best recommendation I could give you, and it might not be the easiest, is to open a savings account. Because when you have a savings account, you can't just spend the money. In order to spend money in a savings account, you have to transfer it to, say, a checking account, okay? So make a savings account, make it difficult, create hurdles so that's not easy to get at the money, and then you won't easily spend it. The more readily available the money is, like a credit card, you're going to rack it up, rack it up, rack it up. Don't take out excessive amounts of credit cards. It's good to have one for an emergency. It's certainly not good to have 25 of them just because you qualify and you got all these applications for them. You know what I mean? It's tough because once you start becoming an adult and you get all this freedom you never had, I said this before in my videos. When you're a kid, you have all this free time and nothing to do with it because you don't have money, you don't have transportation, right? You have nothing that you could do. Then you're an adult. You have the money, you have the transportation, but you don't have the free time. You don't have the time anymore because you're busy with work and you're busy with all this stuff that takes up all your time, and you have the means to do stuff, but now you don't have the freedom to do it because your time's all taken up by so much shit. So the best advice I could say, try to set up stuff that is going to be put into place to prevent you from easily spending the money. If it's a savings account or whatever, that's the route you have to go, because ultimately the easier it is to swipe that credit card or to blow that money, you're going to do it unless you have some kind of a roadblock. And then, of course, as you get older, you'll get more responsible. When you realize, oh, shit, Yeah, now I'm in dire straits because of all the money that I spent or the stuff that I racked up. That's the thing. I remember when I was a teenager and I was going on all these Street Fighter trips, it didn't matter that I blew all my money. I didn't have anything else to spend it on. You know, my parents were always like, save your money. I was like, for fucking what? I'm not going to buy a house. I'm 17 years old. So what am I saving my fucking money for? You know what I mean? So at that point in my life, it didn't really matter if I spent my money or not. Of course, now, holy shit, if only I had that money. So hindsight's 50-50, right? Excuse me, hindsight's 20/20. I always get that saying wrong. Hindsight's 20/20. All right, anyway, next question. This one is from RU4Cookie. And they asked the following. Hey, Phil, I have some questions regarding fighting games after your videos for Street Fighter V. I've tried several fighting games before, like BlazBlue. I don't know if it's BlazBlue or BlazBlue, by the way. I have no idea. Guilty Gear, Persona 4 Arena, Tekken, and Soul Calibur. These were all brief stints. I felt like I never learned the true fundamentals, so I've been looking forward to Street Fighter V because of its focus on core gameplay mechanics without too many gimmicks. However, I do not have a local fighting game community, so all of my gameplay will have to be online. I saw that you had a lot of trouble with trying to have proper matches over the internet, and my question is, would you still recommend this game to someone who is new to fighting games and can only play online? If not, what other games could I try? I will say this, I'm going to be perfectly fair when it comes to Street Fighter V, all right? I played in the betas. These were supposed to be tests of the online matchmaking, connectivity, multiplayer, and I don't feel that anything that I did in Street Fighter V should be held as an example of what the final game will be. All right? I just want to make that abundantly clear. It's not fair when you play in a beta and say, oh, that's the final product, because it's not. The chances are, when this game comes out in mid-February, it could be perfect. You could play online, and the matches are great, and you don't have to sit there 100 years for matchmaking, and it's just as good and quick matchmaking as it was in Street Fighter 4, okay? That being said, don't go into it with insane expectations that it's going to work perfectly either, because I think that's what happens, is people play these betas. Oh, give them the benefit of the doubt, that's just the beta. Then the final game comes out and it doesn't work very well, and you're like, well, maybe I should have known better, you know? Ultimately, I don't know what to expect from Street Fighter V. I don't know how the online multiplayer is going to be. I'm honestly kind of in the same boat as you, because I don't have a local community of players like I used to when I was younger. I had arcades, and from the arcades, I met a group of fighting game players who would locally come over to each other's houses and play these games. I don't have that anymore. And even, like I said, in Seattle is, you know, still a downtown urban Seattle is a drive away from me. So it's not like I could easily every day drive in there and see, oh, there's tournaments going on or whatever. No. So for me, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. If the online multiplayer of Street Fighter V sucks shit, it's going to be very hard for me to learn the game. When it comes to fundamentals, there's tons of people now who do tutorials on just the fundamentals, the bread and butter, which are the starter combos that you can determine, or excuse me, depend on in these games. And all I can say is you could practice them in arcade mode, you could practice them in training mode, and try to at least get the timing down, the basics of the game, and try to understand the basics of the game. But you're right, ultimately you're never going to learn how a game is meant to be played on a competitive level until you play it competitively. So if the multiplayer of Street Fighter V sucks, the game sucks. It's that simple. And in my opinion, that's one of the major things that brought down Mortal Kombat 10. The game was great. There was tons of content for it, tons of modes, but the online multiplayer wasn't very good. And so ultimately, it couldn't have been one of those games that's going to stand in greatness, right? Now, it's funny because now multiplayer for Mortal Kombat 10, they're redoing it, and there's a beta for this new multiplayer that apparently is way better. Too little, too late. The game's a year old. No one's going to run out to buy Mortal Kombat 10 now, even though they're trying to resell it now, if you can believe it, a year later. Oh, Mortal Kombat 10 now with the Season 2 DLC characters too. Buy the game now. No one's going to fucking buy it. People who want it already have it. But I digress. Yeah, we're all in the same pickle. And fingers crossed, you know, that this game works. Now, you're saying, what are some games that you could play that maybe you could try for fundamentals? I mean, it's tough because games have different fundamentals. Like Street Fighter has different fundamentals from Tekken, has different fundamentals from another fighting game franchise. Yes, there may be some things to cross over, but they have variations. And, you know, it was easy. In the 1990s, it was easy because you had Street Fighter, you had Mortal Kombat, and you had maybe one or two other series that were popular at the time. And even though there was Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 3, Street Fighter Alpha, they all kind of had the same common game mechanics. Today, it's not the case. Now these games have totally different game mechanics and stuff. You know, Tekken has the pop-up juggle mechanic that Street Fighter doesn't have. And, you know, these other games like Blast Blue and Guilty Gear have these other mechanics where they have reversal blow-through moves and these advanced aerial juggles. It's all different. So I couldn't tell you, oh, this is the one game you should play to learn fighting games, because games have really diversified and grown apart from each other over the years. I would say this: don't freak out about Street Fighter V. Let's give it a fair shot. Let's wait. Let's give it a fair shot when it releases in a couple weeks. Let's see what happens, and we'll go from there. All right. This question is from Justin, and Justin asks, hey Phil, I hope that you're doing well. I've been a big fan of WWE for a long time. After AJ Lee quit the WWE, she made a comment saying that the Divas are underpaid for the work that they do compared to their male counterparts, and they should deserve more recantation for their craft. Vince McMahon did not say anything against her comment to the public. Basically, he never responded to it. I do understand that wrestling is mostly a male target audience, but the Divas have played key parts in the story development, and in my opinion, sometimes they're more important to the WWE. They only give them one match a show, and usually one pay-per-view match as well. What are your thoughts on what Divas division? What are your thoughts on the Divas division regarding this concern? I am not going to sugarcoat this one. The WWE is a fucking sexist corporation, period. They always have been, and as long as you still have the management in this position that they are, they always will be. Now, I will tell you this, NXT, the developmental territory that supposedly is under the ultimate oversight of Triple H, is way better in this regard. If you watch an episode of NXT, the women get a huge chunk. In fact, I just watched NXT last night, and some of these shows had 2 to 3 women's matches, or plot lines built up around multiple different women wrestlers that make them treat them almost equally with the men. Of course, you always got that grain of sexism still in there, like, oh, here's this really great women's wrestler. She had a match. Oh, by the way, she's also the valet for this male tag team, and she comes out and does the valet job. And it's like, why can't she just be her own person? She also has to be a valet with these other guys. It's weird because you almost have both the modern business and the old school sexist business kind of combined. Now, I will 1,000,000% agree that these women wrestlers who are doing great in NXT, when they go to the mainstream WWE roster, they fall victim to the sexist writer's curse of bullshit, and they're not treated seriously. Just take a look at this Divas revolution that supposedly happened in the summer of 2015, right? You had a good 3, 4, 5 women who really weren't mainstream TV personalities yet, who were all brought into the WWE. But were they brought in as powerful wrestlers? No. You had to have Team Bad, Naomi and Tamina Snuka and Sasha Banks, and they're a 3-person team. Then you had to have Team PCB, Paige and Becky Lynch and Charlotte, and then you had the other team, the Bella twins with Alicia Fox, and it was so botched and stupid because all it became was 3 teams wrestling constantly. There were no plot lines, it wasn't taken seriously, it was a jumbled mess, and it wasn't until the past month when fucking finally they did a real plot line with Becky Lynch against Charlotte, who were supposedly friends in NXT, which, by the way, they weren't. They made that up. They really weren't part of the same team in NXT. But supposedly they were friends in NXT, and then all of a sudden Charlotte has become the champion, so now she's doing every dastardly deed to win, even over her friend having friendly matches. She would cheat to win, and her friend disagreed with it, so they had this big rivalry, this heated rivalry for the Divas division title. Finally, they gave them the limelight. They allowed them to have a mainstream plot line that treated them as seriously as the men. Fucking finally. Oh, then by the way, in the culmination match for the title, Ric Flair comes out and kisses Becky Lynch. So I just want to hang my head in shame, seriously, for being a WWE fan sometimes. So for a month, you build up this really serious plot line for Divas. Wow, we're going to have this awesome title match. So they're treating them equally. They're making them feel serious and positive. Oh, well, we have to have some kind of sexism during the match. Let's have Ric Flair, who's in his 70s, kiss this girl in her 20s against her fucking will. It's true. The WWE still, at least on the mainstream shows, does a terrible job with the women. And I'm going to be honest here. Paige, Natalya, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, Sasha Banks, to some extent Naomi, to some extent Tamina. These women are excellent in the ring. If they were given a chance to shine and actually do the kind of stuff that the males do, they would blow it out of the fucking water. The problem is WWE doesn't let them. and they don't take, a lot of times they don't take them seriously. It's a shame because you see these women doing amazing things in NXT, and then as soon as they hit mainstream TV, it just fucking shits out a fucking Lincoln log of garbage because they ruin them. They don't give them the chance to shine. They don't give them serious plot lines. Now, I certainly have absolutely no idea what the divas are being paid. I can't say, oh, the women are being paid less than the men or whatever. I do know that the WWE has an insanely grueling schedule, whether you're a male or a female. I think they should all be well paid, but that's neither here nor there. Yes, there's sexism in the WWE. Yes, it's abundantly clear that it exists, and yes, it needs to be fucking fixed, but as long as you have the same people in power, Vince McMahon, excuse me, there was something in my throat there, you're not going to see a change, you know? We're very close, I feel. We are very close to a regime change in WWE. Another few years, we just got to get there. All right. Next question is from Christian Osborne, 1996, and Christian asks the following. Hey, Phil, I saw that you've done Patron's Choice, You've done Patron's Choice playthroughs that you upload online, such as your recent platforming marathons like Conker's Bad Fur Day and Crash Bandicoot, etc. And that's a good idea that you do those because you normally wouldn't play those games. Do you think that patrons could vote for fighting games and PlayStation 2 emulation as well? The bottom line is, when I do a Patron's Choice playthrough, it could be any game. I don't care what kind of game it is. It could be a role-playing game. It could be an open-world creation game like Minecraft. It could be an action-style game. It could be a game I've already played before, such as Fallout New Vegas, which won a Patron's Choice poll last year. It could be a game I've never played before. It could be a fighter. It could be anything. I'm totally open to listening. And in fact, this is a good time to bring it up. On my Patreon right now for the month of January, you now have 3 days left to pledge to my Patreon, and if you pledge $5 or more, and we hit the funding goal for this month, which we are close to, so we may do, the Patron's Choice playthrough returns, which means you're going to be able to nominate and vote on any kind of game for me to play, starting in the month of probably around mid-March. It looks like the second half of March is actually pretty slow, so that's probably when I would start that Patron's Choice playthrough, all right? And I leave it completely open. I'm not going to say, oh, I can't do it. The only games that I'll say this, the only games that I would 100% be against is a game that's not easily readily available to play. So if you're, I want you to play Battle Arena Toshinden, the PlayStation 1 version, which isn't available digitally to play on PlayStation, say, PlayStation 3 off the marketplace. Well, that's tough. I don't have a method right now to capture the classic consoles without, like, say, emulation and stuff like that. So if it's a game that's outside of easy emulation on a console or something, yeah, then I would say it would be tough, and that wouldn't be a viable Patron's Choice playthrough. But hey, if someone right now, if the patron said, wow, we really want to see Phil go in-depth with, I don't know, Street Fighter 2, a version that's available, or Street Fighter Alpha Series, if there was a digital version available to play of that, or even those, the games, honestly, I could probably get the original Street Fighters emulated on my PC, and I could play with my joystick that way, and I could, you want to see coverage of the characters, I could do basics of each character, I could do arcade mode run-throughs, I could even do some online multiplayer. I could do it, but the patrons would have to ask for it, and ultimately it seems to me that patrons seem to have things in mind. For example, a bunch of people have been saying, when will Phil play the Mafia games? Because Mafia 3 is coming out, will he be playing one of the original Mafias anytime soon? When will Phil be playing, what was the other one that a ton of people asked? Oh, Darkest Dungeon. I guess this was a game that was like, you had early access to it, and now it finally released for PC, and people are like, is Phil going to play Darkest Dungeon? It's not on my radar, but if people ask for me to do it in this Patron's Choice playthrough, I'll do it, right? So, patreon.com/DarksidePhil, $5 pledge in the next 3 days or so. By the end of January 2016, if we hit the goal, we'll be doing Patron's Choice. You'll be able to nominate through the month of February and vote in March, and I'll start playing it in March, whatever wins, okay? All right, let's see here. How many questions do we have left? 1, 2... I'll try to answer 1 to 2 more. Let's see how long this takes. This question is from Drazen, and Drazen asked the following. Phil, my question for you is regarding the game of 2015 with the best graphics, but also regarding video game graphics in general. I recall you saying in your Hateful Truth review of the Order 1886 that you felt the game had the best graphics you'd ever seen on a console. However, many people felt that the Order 1886 and its developers sacrificed many elements of the game, making it extremely linear, full of quick time events, cutscenes that had entire chapters of the game where it was just, gameplay taking a back seat as your character would only walk slowly through a part of the game so that the game's assets could actually load around them. I want to know if your opinion of the Order 1886 still stands. In other words, do you feel that amazing graphics should be appreciated as they are, regardless of how much the developers cheated in order to achieve them? Or do you think that they should be admired much more if they were spread widely over open worlds with fully fleshed out gameplay? Either way, I'd like to know which console game of 2015 you feel has the best graphics. That's a pretty valid question. 2015 had some games that really were bait and switch. The Order was one of them. But I will stand by this. I will say that The Order, The Witcher 3, and probably I'd say Metal Gear Solid 5 were the 3 games in my mind that are really standing out. To some extent, Batman Arkham Knight, but probably just a little bit under those 3. Amazing graphics. I would say playing The Order 1886, I felt like I was in an interactive movie. I did. I felt like this was a computer-generated movie, and the whole game was CGI, and I was actually controlling a movie. That's what it feels like when you play the game. But when you have a game that's like 7 hours long, out of that 3 hours of cutscenes, the gameplay is generic third-person cover-based shooter gameplay, and the few times that monsters are on the screen, they're extremely underwhelming because the gameplay is so limited. Was it worth it? Was it really worth it to take this game that had massive potential to be a great game and basically make it a tech demo? Because ultimately, that's what the Order 1886 is. It's a tech demo for the PlayStation 4. It looks gorgeous, but if that's not what you're looking for, you're going to be pissed off that you spent full price for a game that doesn't give you a full gameplay experience. And the bottom line is that's why after a month or two, the game did not sell well at all. This price plummeted. You could buy the game for like $20 at the store after like 2 months. It was preposterous how bad the game did and how they had to cut the prices to get anyone to even buy the game, and it ended up being a fucking flop. Now, compare that to a game like Metal Gear Solid 5. Did it have the insane detail and graphic level of the Order 1886? No. But it ran at 60 frames per second. The times that you did see the graphics in detail, they looked amazing, right? What about The Witcher 3? Yeah, now that ran at 30 frames per second, but look at the amount of detail to the stuff that was in The Witcher 3. You know, that game looked fucking stunning. So you can take amazing graphics, and if you sacrifice a little bit, you can make it to a giant, awesome gameplay, full game. I don't understand what the game developers were thinking with the Order 1886. Is there such a huge demand at this point now for groundbreaking graphics? Like in the 90s? Yeah, in the 90s, when technology was advancing so quickly, when people, wow, look at this groundbreaking jump. Look at this groundbreaking jump. Just look from the NES and the Sega Master System to the Super NES and Sega Genesis to the PlayStation and Nintendo 64 to the Dreamcast, right? And then the next generation PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Look at the huge improvements every generation. But now, let's take a look. Some games on PS4 kind of look like games on PS3. You know what I mean? PC gaming, is it giant fucking, leaps and bounds improving? Not really. It's getting a little bit better here and there, but is it like, oh my god? No, not really anymore. Do we really need to make a game? Boy, this cop is apparently driving by my neighborhood here, not going away. It's really annoying. Do we have a massive demand in this day and age to have a game that's just about the visuals solely? No, I don't think so. I don't think we have demand for amazing, groundbreaking visuals anymore. I think we've reached kind of almost a plateau where, okay, everything looks great. Now let's focus on better games. Games that are delivering. Games that when you buy them, you feel like you're getting a $60 gameplay experience, not a, $20 gameplay experience shoved into a $60 envelope because it looks like a CGI movie. I don't think the graphics are that big of a deal anymore. I don't. I really don't. And I think that it needs to change, quite honestly, in the future. All right? All right, so I only have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got about 9 questions left. So we'll end the video here, okay? I'll take a quick break. I'll return with the third and final part of Ask the King for January 2016. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'll be back shortly. See you then.